It is, and it's only going to get more crazy. And this vaccine topic is a hot button topic. I did a report of the emergency order that was declared here in my state, which authorizes the state to mandate forced vaccines, basically. And YouTube took it down within like 20 hours. It was so quick.
And it
And
was the truth. It was the truth. You
yeah, I
see, this is what makes me sick to my stomach. It's the truth. But somebody doesn't want people seeing that because they don't want there any chance that people will come together and mobilize. They're terrified of a genuine mobilization.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Spiro. Thanks for tuning in. Today, my guest is the great Richie Allen, who has been a journalist, a broadcaster, and producer for 20 plus years. He is the host of The Richie Allen Show, the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. You can find him at richieallen.co.uk. Richie, welcome, and thanks so much for being my guest.
It's an honor, Spiro. Thanks for having me, mate. How are you?
I'm doing well, despite all of the circumstances, with this new normal, as they call it, that just seems to get stranger and weirder by the day. How's everything going on your side of the pond?
Busy day here today. The UK Prime Minister announced earlier today that more people than ever would be encouraged to have a flu vaccine this coming winter in order to try and protect the NHS in the event of a second spike of coronavirus. So they're going to offer the jab free of charge to everybody in the country over 50. And they're going to ramp up their offering of the jab to children up to the age of 11 as well. They've basically been saying the same trite things that children are super spreaders of bugs, and even though flu is no big deal for a child, we should worry about them passing it on to their senior relatives. So it's been a pretty busy day today. A lot of talk of anti-vaxxers as well in this country. There was a number of World Health Organization doctors on UK media today, most notably Margaret Harris, talking about the need to deal with misinformation. And Margaret Harris said, and I quote, she said, we're undergoing a pretty big effort. By we, she meant the World Health Organization. We're undertaking a pretty big effort to deal with misinformation around vaccines. And the typically useless Sky News presenter didn't try and dig down into what she meant by, we're going to take a big stand or a big step towards dealing with misinformation. So it's been a pretty busy day here today, mate. Yeah.
And of course, this is all right out of a page right out of Event 201, where they spent a considerable amount of time discussing the threat of anti-vaxxers and misinformation, and talking about the lengths that they would go to try to prevent the spread of what they call misinformation, which, of course, they are the self-appointed arbiters of truth at this point, because even when you have studies in science which directly contradicts what the World Health Organization is saying, and you present those, you are still labeled a conspiracy theorist, even though they're saying, look at the science, and then when you show the science and it contradicts exactly what they're saying, they don't. They try to ignore that, but it's really amazing to see, and of course, Event 201 being the tabletop exercise of a coronavirus outbreak, a global pandemic of a coronavirus outbreak that happened pretty much right when this actual coronavirus outbreak took place. So it's incredible to see. And they were talking about going to extreme lengths, even limited internet shutdowns, and even throwing people in jail who were spreading what they deemed to be misinformation. And that is terrifying to hear them openly talking about this.
We have called this meeting today because of major strategic problems around communication that are happening globally. And here's a media debate that just happened on air today.
Alarming news emerging from social media companies today about the CAPS pandemic. Twitter and Facebook are reporting they've identified and deleted a disturbing number of accounts dedicated to spreading disinformation about the outbreak.
To me, it is clear countries need to make strong efforts to manage both mis- and disinformation. We know social media companies are working around the clock to combat these disinformation campaigns. The task of identifying every bad actor is immense. And experts agree that new disinformation campaigns are being generated every day. This is a huge problem that's going to keep us from ending the pandemic and might even lead to the fall of governments, as we saw in the Arab Spring. If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
Okay, for more on this, we're going to get a briefing from our communications expert, Dr. Sell.
Global health experts have highlighted that dis and misinformation are wreaking havoc on the CAP's response. Health workers are under attack in a number of locations due to rumors that they are purposely spreading the disease. And response efforts in many places have had to be suspended because of concerns around violence. Pharmaceutical companies are being accused of introducing the CAPS virus so they can make money on drugs and vaccines, and have seen public faith in their products plummet. Unrest due to false rumors and divisive messaging is rising and is exacerbating spread of the disease as levels of trust fall and people stop cooperating with response efforts. This is a massive problem, one that threatens governments and trusted institutions. Polls have shown that mis and disinformation are ubiquitous. At least 90% of the public has been exposed to these messages. At the same time, misinformation messages come from a variety of sources, even government officials. And often governments are contradicting one another. We know that social media is now the primary way that many people get their news. So interruptions to these platforms could curb the spread of misinformation, but could also limit access to information from legitimate sources. Health ministries around the world are attempting to combat mis and disinformation by amplifying public health messaging through social and traditional media. But they are being outpaced by false and misleading information. National governments are considering or have already implemented a range of interventions to combat misinformation. Some governments have taken control of national access to the internet. Others are censoring websites and social media content. And a small number have shut down internet access completely to prevent the spread of misinformation. Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests. Other countries have taken a more moderate approach and have focused on promoting fact-checking efforts and working with traditional media outlets, yet these approaches are limited in scope. Social media companies report that they're doing all they can to limit the use of their platforms for nefarious or misleading purposes. But this is a technically difficult problem, and false, misleading, or half-true information is difficult to sort without limiting potentially true messages. The bottom line is that members of the public no longer know who to trust. Both the misinformation and the measures to control it have led to a crisis of confidence.
Richie, I have a lot of respect for you. You've been doing this for a long time, and I've always found you to be honest and genuine. And I listen to your show all the time, and recently you made a post on Facebook, and you were talking about it on your radio show, about people you know who work at Google, and warned you of a coming censorship purge. Can you please share with us what your contacts are telling you?
Yeah, for a few years I've known a couple of people. In fact, I've known 3 people. One of them has actually come on the radio show. He's left Google. In fact, he's done a lot of radio shows. And typically now his name escapes me. But he's currently in a relationship with the wonderful Mariam Hanane. So I think your viewers will probably know who I'm talking about.
Zach Voorhees.
Yeah, Zach, of course. Jesus wept, yeah. But I've known a couple of other guys as well, going back a long time, basically. And over the years, they've dropped me a couple of bits of information about things. Nothing groundbreaking, but just interesting, you know. Back about 4 years ago, they were telling me, one of them was telling me that YouTube or Google was about to start demonetizing platforms, and they would blame it on the advertisers. They would say the advertisers were uncomfortable with their ads being placed on channels like David Icke and so on. So they gave me that heads up, and that, of course, that happened very shortly after I was told that. But earlier this week, I had a chat with one of the guys, and he said to me, look, he said, I'm hearing something, and I've heard it a few times, and that is that there is a plan in place to delete, remove lots and lots and lots of channels. The ones that talk about vaccine safety, maybe as a rule, you know, there are some channels who deal with that exclusively. And there are other channels then, like yours, Spiro, yours is a news channel. You talk about everything. And they said that, he said to me that there is a plan in place that once the vaccine or vaccines are ready, that, they're at the stage where they're ready to be deployed and sent to doctor surgeries all over the world, that around about that time or shortly beforehand, Google, YouTube would begin to take down lots and lots and lots of channels. And that was going to happen. And he also said that he believed that they'd already been discussing this with people from Facebook and people from Twitter, and that it would be a synchronized thing, that they were concerned about Facebook groups, particularly Facebook groups more than Twitter, because groups are difficult things for them to access, closed groups and closed communities. So I asked him, did he have any hard evidence of that? Is it anything that you can show me? And of course he didn't. And he said, no, it's just something I'm hearing quite a bit. And he's not a management level guy, but he's an honest guy. And I do know he worked for Google. I know that. I've been satisfied. My satisfaction, I needed to know that a long time ago, and he satisfied that for me. So he said, you need to get that out to people whom you know effectively, because it's not so much a thing for me, because if and when eventually Google, YouTube deletes my own particular channel, I'll be glad, to be honest. I'll breathe a big sigh of relief, because I don't like it. I don't like the platform. I don't like using it. I hate uploading to it, knowing what it is that it does. But there are a lot of people whom, for them, it's the only place they can go. There are a lot of content creators whom they've got a lot of stuff saved there. They've got a big bank of videos, often very well made videos, with a lot of information, much of it that is factual. So my pal said to me, he said, you need to warn people that it's time for them to start backing up the videos and the interviews and the shows that they've done. And really, when you think about it, Spiro, it's not really groundbreaking stuff, what he said. We could have guessed that. I mean, if we were in the position of these people, we're brighter than these people, than these tyrants. And that's the sort of thing we would do, because we're brighter, Well, yeah, before they bring the vaccine out. And the reason for this, of course, is they're very, very worried about there being a reluctance in society for people to take the vaccine. A poll in this country last week showed that around about 27% of people, that's here in the UK now, are saying, well, don't fancy the vaccine. They don't like that, Spiro. That's not good news for them. And of course, some of us believe that it's far deeper, or it goes far deeper than just finances or monetary gain. It's beyond that. For me, it's about transhumanism and so many other things. So they don't want this to happen. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. My contact, he's not deep throat or anything like that. He's just a guy that's interested in the independent media. And he said, I've been hearing it, and I'm not surprised by it. And one or two people, he said, in my division have said that. They've said that they're hearing it too, that when the time comes that a lot of channels will go. And just to repeat, I don't think that's groundbreaking, because at the moment, lots of channels, David Icke's channel was taken down. I see David's books have been removed from Waterstone Books in the UK, which is a major chain. This is not news. Really, it's just a bit of a public service announcement, really. You've got a treasure trove, mate, yourself, of great interviews on your channel. And I know you're smart. You'll have backed this stuff up already, so that in the event tomorrow they say, right, let's get rid of Skouras, bang, at least you've got the information there. This is sickening. It's sickening. It's obnoxious to me. It makes my stomach churn. But this is where we are. And, you have them today saying we want everybody over 50 to have this vaccine. And even scarier than that, there is a UK doctor called Ellie Cannon. She's a celebrity doctor. She was on telly today basically saying, we've got to learn the lessons from the beginning of the COVID pandemic in terms of how we get people to take the vaccine. This is what she said. So we quickly built all these hospitals, these empty hospitals, the Nightingale hospitals, which lie empty today, which lay empty throughout the whole, let's call it pandemic. It's the right term for it. So she was suggesting today, what we need to do is take over big car parks, fields, big public spaces, and have drive-through vaccine clinics and stuff like that. Meaning, in the near future, you're going to be here in the UK, you're going to be in the high street maybe, if the high streets are not gone, for your listeners back home, of course, high streets, main shopping areas, main shopping thoroughfares. And usually when you walk down the high street, the thoroughfare, these days you've got people trying to sell you stuff, subscriptions to charities and stuff like that. In the very near future, it's going to be somebody coming up to you asking you to take the vaccine. You don't want any money for it, mind. Listen, while we have you, why don't you have the vaccine? And they're saying to protect the NHS. You're selfish if you don't take it. Yes, you're 45, you're very fit, you're very healthy. Yeah, flu won't bother you, but it might really hurt the guy across the street if he gets the flu. So you've got to have the vaccine. So while they're putting all this in place, just to go back to my Google mate, it makes perfect sense that they would try and minimize any criticism of that by taking down probably the big channels, the ones that have got a lot of subscribers, the ones that do it properly, as we would say as journalists, the ones who do their homework and don't tell lies and present information factually and trust their listeners and their viewers. Because there's a lot of crap in the independent media as well. But the ones who do it well, they need to watch out because this has gotten real very quick, Spiro.
Well, it certainly has, Richie. And while you state that it's not necessarily groundbreaking, I would have to agree with that to a certain extent. But at the same time, in a way, it is, because it's a major move that they're making on their part.
If they do it now.
If it happens.
Right. Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
If it happens, because we're talking about a multi-platform purge, potentially, according to, what your friend there at Google has been hearing, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And, it certainly is apparent that these social engineers are desperate and determined to control the narrative. For example, Google just announced that on August 18th, they will be demonetizing websites who peddle coronavirus conspiracy theories, pulling their ads. And this is essentially what they did to those YouTube accounts you were mentioning earlier a few years back.
Yeah.
And this is a form of economic warfare, basically, in an attempt to bankrupt entire platforms and websites at this point. So this is a perfect example to me of how dangerous monopolies can be. And, Richie, do you think that they'll be able to get away with this and just wipe out the alternative media to a large extent, or is this going to possibly backfire on them if it happens,
If it happens, Spiro, they'll get away with it. They will if they decide to do it. One of the things I'd love to see happen, I'd love to see a content creator who's got enough money to take them to court. Because this is not me now. I've heard this from people who are more in the know about business than I am. But when Google accepts you into its partnership program, it's effectively signing a contract with you to make money with you, to go into business with you. And for YouTube giving you no comeback whatsoever, no warning, to end that relationship, to demonetize your channel, there's got to be some legal recourse for the channel owner. And I would love to see somebody with enough money to take Google on and say, listen, you can't do that to me. We were in business together and we had a contract of sorts. I made videos, you put ads on there, you got your cut, I got my cut. You can't just do this. And I think that needs to happen. But to be a little bit pessimistic, if they want to do it, they'll just do it. This is the sickening thing. Spiro, I don't know if you're aware of this today, but on UK news this morning, the Labour Party's shadow culture secretary is a Labour Party politician called Jo Stevens. And she's written to the broadcast regulator in the UK, which is Ofcom. And she's asked them to consider removing the licence from RT in this country, which means that RT would not be able to broadcast in the UK. That's the Labour Party that proclaims itself to be a socialist party. Free speech is under attack everywhere. It doesn't matter where you look. RT is a television channel. That, the money comes from the Duma. Fair enough. But the BBC money comes from the government through the licence fee here in the UK, so don't be hypocrites about it. And sometimes RT's reporting has a pro-Russian slant. So what? Every news outlet in the UK has an anti-Russian slant to its reporting. So why not? Let's have one. Let's just have one station that gives us something different. But they want to get rid of RT. And I know it's because RT not only has put out some obviously pro-Russian content, fair enough, but it's also from time to time allowed discussion around vaccines and things like that. So all of a sudden now you've got politicians in this country politically trying to influence the so-called independent media regulator, Ofcom, asking them to consider getting rid of RT, something they did to Press TV 3 or 4 years ago here in this country. I'm sick to be here, to be honest. It's sickening to me, and it's happening, and most people are blissfully unaware. Most people are putting masks on their faces to go to the store. It's madness, Spiro.
It is madness.
What are you going to do?
Well, that's right. It's a good question. That's the million-dollar question right there, and it is madness, and it is accelerating at this point. It's everything seems to be accelerating as we entered 2020. It seems we've entered the next phase of this operation, and it really seems like they're going for broke on this one, Richie. This doesn't seem like it's a dry run.
No.
They're really pulling out all the stops here. And
Hey, can I tell you something? Sorry for
Please.
interrupting you on your program. Before I forget it, the Prime Minister today, Boris Johnson, speaking in a hospital, standing next to nurses, said anti-vaxxers are nuts. He said it twice.
Because there's all these anti-vaxxers now, isn't it?
Well, Marina can tell you a little bit about how we've...
And then, just after that, he did an interview with Sky, and he said, we're not going to be out of this till beyond the middle of next year. In other words, masks in shops, social distancing, not having any life outside of your house. These people are evil. I'm not going to go full scale. I feel like going full Gerald Salente, our mutual friend. I feel like it, but I'm not going to do it. I don't know anybody who's sick. I know a lot of people in this city. I've got a big listenership in Manchester and Greater Manchester. Nobody knows anybody who's sick. Nobody knows anybody who's died. Most people who did die, God love them, were very senior and they were in care homes. And why did they die in care homes? Because the government took people out of hospitals, stuffed them in care homes, didn't test the people coming out of hospitals, and basically culled a load of OAPs, old age pensioners. The vast majority of people get it. They don't even know they've had it. You might have a sore throat. You might not even have a sore throat. It's evil, Spiro. It's evil. And I rack my brains. I saw on one of my Facebook posts the other day, I don't have a personal Facebook page, but the show has one. A guy went bananas. I don't blame him. A guy went bananas. I'm sick of you guys in the independent media. I'm sick of you telling us this stuff. What's the solution? And my response to him is, listen, I'm a journalist. All I can do is poke holes in the official story, but I can't tell you what to do. I wish I had the answer. I think non-violent civil disobedience on a huge scale, maybe. I think if you're violent with them, they'll just eat you up. They love violence. David Icke always said that. They love it. They've got the tools to deal with violence. Best way to deal with them. What did the Dream Warriors say in the books read by Johnny Depp in A Nightmare on Elm Street, the great film, Heather Langenkamp? Turn your back on them. Ignore them. Take away their power. The way forward. But how do you get a large body of people together to do that? That's the $64 million question. But what's happening at the moment, I didn't think I'd live through it. I thought I'd be dead before we got to this stage,
Right, yeah, I know. This is stuff that, you've been warning about, many others have been warning about for years and years, and now it's finally at our doorstep. And this is, no doubt, the biggest psychological operation probably ever on a global scale at this point in time. And, as the numbers, as this thing has progressed, the information and the science and the data and the numbers have really come out to expose how this is not even close to being what they were projecting it to be on the Bill Gates funded computer models. So this is concerning to me as like, what's the next shoe to drop? Are they going to be able to convince the massive majority of the public to take this experimental vaccine based on the current situation? Or are we approaching, as we get closer to the flu season and the U.S. presidential elections and this vaccine coming out, is there going to be a second shoe to drop? Because they've been warning about the second wave, and we know, and this is just, hypothetical here projecting forward, but based on, history and capabilities and motives and everything like that. They have access to germ warfare programs,
Of course they do.
Yeah,
Do you know what they were saying today, Spiro? Do you know what they were saying today? They were saying obesity is a big problem. Basically, don't be obese. Protect the NHS. That goes straight to social crediting. That's going to be listed as a bad habit in the near future. They were shaming people today, UK politicians who are overweight. Now, people are overweight not because they're lazy, bastards, as we would say here in Manchester. No, it's because a lot of them have no other access except frozen crap from a cheap supermarket. And they're saying if you don't lose a bit of weight, you've got to think about the second wave. And by losing weight, you're going to help other people and you'll help the NHS. And they say it like this, they use these words, but the crux of it is it's wrong to be fat. And you shouldn't be, because you're a burden on people and you're a burden on the NHS. And that goes directly to social crediting. So about the vaccine, it'll be coercion. I think you and I have chatted about this on the radio show. It'll be coercion, Spiro. It'll be, I mean, you even had a doctor from Kent University the other day writing in the Daily Mail saying, listen, take the vaccine and then it'll go back to the way it was. And he said it nakedly. I put the screenshot of it on Twitter. Have the vaccine and then we go back to the way things were beforehand. Why are they so desperate for us to have the vaccine? People need to start asking that. And as you said, you made a great point there a minute ago, an untested vaccine.
That's right. I mean, this is an experimental. I mean, I think everybody knows this at this point. An experimental, never before used RNA or DNA vaccine, and that's the way. That's the reason why they're able to rush this through faster than ever before, because they claim that this new vaccine technology allows them to streamline the process and to hurry up and rush this through. And so this is, and yes, they're doing human clinical trials right now.
What we've seen from the current group of COVID vaccines is none of that's happening. They're skipping key parts of the test. A Moderna vaccine, which is the lead candidate, skipped the animal testing altogether. When they came to human testing, they tested it on 45 people. They had a high dose group of 15 people, a medium dose group of 15 people, and a low dose group of 15 people. In the low dose group, one of the people got so sick from the vaccine, they had to be hospitalized. That's 6%. In the high dose group, 3 people got so sick, they had to be hospitalized. That's 20%. Mm-hmm. They're going ahead and making 2 billion doses of that vaccine. And by the way, the people that they test them on, Alan, are not typical Americans. They use what they call exclusionary criteria. They are only giving these vaccines in these tests that they're doing to the healthiest people. If you look at their exclusionary criteria, you cannot be pregnant. You cannot be overweight. You must have never smoked a cigarette. You must have never vaped. You must have no respiratory problems in your family. You can't suffer asthma. You can't have diabetes. You can't have rheumatoid arthritis or any autoimmune disease. There has to be no history of seizure in your family. These are the people they're testing the vaccine on. But that's not who they're going to give them to. Mm-hmm. They're going to go, what happens? These people are like the Avengers. They're like Superman. You can shoot them with a bullet and they won't go down. What happens when they give them to the typical American, Sally Six-Pack and Joe Bag of Donuts, who's 50 pounds overweight and has diabetes? What is going to happen then? You're not going to see 20%. You're going to see a lot of people dropping.
It's just unbelievable, what we're seeing roll out right now. And, there's so much more to get into, but I really appreciate you coming on today, Richie, and talking about what your friend at Google was telling you about this potential coming purge that will be across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. I mean, this could be, the way you worded it in your Facebook post was that this would be like the largest purge to date, essentially.
Yeah, if they do it. I mean, I hope he's wrong. Again, we're not talking about a management level guy here, but just a pretty shrewd guy. And of course, like at any other company, people gossip. But he said enough people were saying it when I spoke to him. He said enough people were saying it, that there was some unholy alliance, to come between the 3 big ones, and that the discussions had already taken place. But he said, he couldn't give me anything concrete to the smoking gun that I could take to the public and say, look, here's a big exclusive. But he use it, even whatever comes of it, do use it to, warn your pals that they really do need to back their stuff up. I mean, I don't do so much on YouTube. I'm a radio show, not a video show, for obvious reasons. All right, I'm being modest. I'm obviously gorgeous. We know that, but no, seriously. So yeah, everything is backed up. So if they ever did that to me again, I mean, when they did it to me, when they took my YouTube channel down nearly 3 years ago, all that stuff, all the audio files were all saved anyway. So it's a good thing, and you would be surprised at just how many people don't back stuff up. You'd be amazed. People for granted when they put it on YouTube that it's there. Well, no, you might put stuff on YouTube and you might not know, but a video that you done, say, 3 months ago, they might have deleted that. You wouldn't know that because you wouldn't be looking back at it. In fact, I sometimes go through my Google, my Gmails, and I find, video from the 26th of February is gone. And I just laugh, because I don't care, because I don't want to deal with them. But yeah, look, let's hope it doesn't happen. I suspect it might, to be honest. I mean, it's what I would do. I'm not evil. I'm not an evil genius. I'm not a genius, let alone an evil genius. But I would do that. I would think, if you're going to think like them, let's hope it doesn't happen. And in the meantime, all we can do is use some other platforms and solidarity with the other good content creators that are out there. Keep being honest. Keep providing a platform. I mean, what you do, and this is not buttering you up. Your interviews they're sensational. Getting people on, giving them 25, 30 minutes. They'd be lucky to get 4 minutes on the mainstream media, if they even got on the mainstream media. That's all you can keep doing. And just hope that enough people say, no, we're not having this anymore. And we can only pray for that, Spiro, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is, I think, we've seen the writing on the wall for some time. It is time to start moving away from these establishment platforms that just want to control this source of information. They want to control and shape your perception of reality based on allowing you access to the information that they deem to be safe or appropriate or whatever for you. We're adults. I don't need some mega corporation or big tech company trying to keep me safe from, potentially harmful content or whatever. So this is, things are only going to get crazier, I have a feeling, as we approach this, second half of the year, as we get deeper into it. And